السميع العليم من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله وكفى والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Dear viewer of Salam TV, we are back with our weekly programs, the AlHidaayah show, where we see a number of things. For the past episodes, we have been looking at Islam and technology, and we have seen a number of things in that topic concerning the contribution of Islam in terms of developing technology, our golden age, in terms of contributing to Islam. As Muslims, we have contributed a lot, towards the advancement of Islam, and we continue with this series. In today's program, I will be your host, Menya Ayub. With me in the studio is Brother Sekalima Hamza, who happens to be a lecturer at AlHidaayah, which is Islamic University in Uganda. Allow me to invite him to say salam to you, then we dive directly into the program. Brother Sekalima, please.
Now, our viewers, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I welcome you to this show, and I pray that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will give us the guidance that we need in order to succeed as Muslims, and also to give us the capacity to help others to build an understanding of this great religion, remove the biases, and see how beautiful and productive this deen can be. It is one of our responsibilities as Muslims to do that on a day-to-day basis.
Thank you. With that intro, Brother Sekalima, today, as I've introduced, we are here to continue with a series of our programs to do with Islam and science, and what really Islam has contributed in terms of developing technologies. In today's episode, we are going to look at a topic which is in line with technology, and this is beneficial technology. And there are a number of beneficial technologies that have developed in the world, some of which have had a hand, in advancing Islam. But at the same time, it is kind of double-edged. It has kind of been detrimental also to Islam. So technology in itself is double-edged. How we use it is how it will be either beneficial or detrimental to Islam. So in today's episode, we are going to look at just an item in technology, which is internet. So Brother Sekalima, I think we can start right away looking at what internet is, its history, and really what we can harness as Muslims in terms of utilization of internet.
Naam, alhamdulillah. Now, the internet is essentially an innovation that was done by the United States Department of Defense. So their intention was, if we have a catastrophic attack to the point that we are unable to communicate with one another using conventional means like telephone, how do we continue to exist? How do we live on?
How can we continue to be in touch with one another?
Exactly. So they invented a network that works in a disconnected way, meaning instead of us having a central control point like what most networks work like, this time we distribute the control points into smaller pieces. Now, like for example, if I'm to look at Uganda as my internet, we are just building a picture so that one can easily build a mental understanding. So instead of you having one central point in Kampala as your control, you put a control point in every district, and those control points are able to communicate with one another directly. So in that case, even if you come and remove Kampala, they will continue to work because they don't rely on on Kampala. If you remove Jinja, the rest will continue to work. So that's the whole idea about the internet. And originally it was really built for military purposes.
Is that the concept of redundancy in the technology?
Yes, of course, redundancy is where you provide more than one option in order to allow for continuity in the event of a catastrophe. One piece goes down, the others continue.
Exactly.
So, although it was invented for military purposes, they later realized that this is something that can actually be used in civilian life. Interestingly, the open internet started only around 1995. So
but it has been, you know, it was used way back
earlier than that. It was strictly for military purposes. But they later realized this is a very beneficial technology that can expand into the civilian environment. One good thing that happened after it became part of civilian environment is that businesses and other entities that have a lot of capital were able to invest in the growth of this technology, because the military, for them, for as long as they could be able to communicate, they didn't really need to put a lot of content on this platform. But once it was open to civilian use, then everyone now came with the good ideas, and very many of them are within the fold of Islam. So that's why we are looking at it as one important technology that has benefited us very much as Muslims, because ultimately this is one of the most important distribution areas for Islamic information and knowledge. One thing we should note is that Islam is the fastest growing religion in the two areas of North America and Europe. Nowadays, even South America is catching up, but North America and Europe are the main areas where we see very fast growth of Islam. But these are not places that have proximity to Muslims. Actually, they are very far from the concentration of Muslims, because Muslim concentration is mainly in Asia
and North Africa.
Possibly Africa, the north part of Africa and some part of Central Africa. So those are the concentration areas. So how do we see this region again growing very rapidly within the places that are very far off from the concentration areas? And the main thing that is powering that is the internet. So within the internet, because like we have said, the internet is simply a communication network. So the content we see is not necessarily part of the internet. The internet is like when the government builds a road. Once the road is there, you can put a building on the road, you can put any kind of thing on that road. So the internet is the main technology, but out of it, we have a very interesting area that we call the World Wide Web. The World Wide Web is that interconnection where we use websites and other tools of information distribution. But within the World Wide Web, for today, we want to focus a lot on video distribution, and that is on a channel called YouTube. Now, YouTube was invented originally as a free video sharing technology. Later, it was purchased by Google, and you know that Google is a very large company, so it provided a lot of growth to this platform called YouTube, because Google has a lot more servers. We are able to store far bigger volumes of information, moreover for free. So one may ask, how does Google benefit? Google benefits mainly by advertising, because whenever you visit a video, you'll find they run some adverts, and those companies pay Google for the advertising that happens on their sites. But for us as Muslims, this YouTube has given us an opportunity to, one, author content. Actually, nowadays, ever since we had the COVID pandemic, even Ugandans are now having a lot of content on YouTube. Originally, it was something that was seen as mainly foreign. You could hardly find a Ugandan content on YouTube. But now you'll find very large amounts of video that you would not be able to access. A lot of interesting things. So for the global audience, you have very big channels like One Islam, One Islam Production. If you look it up on YouTube, that channel was set up by Abdurrahim Green. Abdurrahim Green is actually a person that became a Muslim, after his exposure to Islam, and he founded this One Islam environment. So within it, you'll find a lot of content, all kinds of videos that you may want to access, because remember that our religion is really built on knowledge. You cannot survive as a Muslim unless you have knowledge. But the knowledge is not something we just sit up and create by ourselves. It has to come from an authentic source. It means you need scholars. But scholars are in a limited supply. So if you're going to sit here in Uganda and you can only access scholars from within the domain of Uganda, then in that case you find yourself stuck. But now with a single channel like One Islam Productions, which is available to us, you are able to access scholars from the whole of the world. Be they American scholars, be they scholars from the Asian Asian continent. So many people that have exposure to so many different areas of knowledge, you find they have authored content and put it on these places here. So we are able to access videos, we are able to, and the advantage is also the videos are there, yes, but they give you room for comments, meaning you can be able to even make an input. You ask and you get yourself answered, and this is a very important resource, because this religion of ours, unlike some others, we have an obligation to spread. It's not enough that a person says La ilaha illallah. The next obligation is to tell others, because when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about people that will refuse to become Muslim, and when they come to face him, the ayah is saying alam ya'tikum nadhir. So that is the question that will be asked to whoever will face Allah and they have not actually embraced the fold of Islam. Alam ya'tikum nadhir.
So meaning, essentially what you are telling us, besides the traditional and conventional way of spreading dawah, that is, say for example, when I want to learn my deen, I should look for a sheikh in the mosque, or I should go to the madrasa. The conventional way, yes. This kind of technology can help us to to reach even areas where essentially a big scholar cannot be able either to travel or a student to be able to travel there.
Yes, exactly. So that's what we are saying. The content is available, the content is moreover free. That is the other advantage of this particular domain of YouTube, because it's not based on purchase of content, it is based on advertising. We are able to access a lot of material that would otherwise require you to either pay for that service or any other provision that will require money. But here we are able to access these videos, and we are able to learn our deen, moreover from all kinds of very advanced sources, some of which would be really practically impossible to access. Videos about Islam and science, you simply do a simple search and you should be able to get thousands of videos, and moreover genuine videos, some of them coming out of really very focused scientific research to prove the message that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has revealed. The verse X, it talks about this particular aspect of the universe, and that particular aspect is represented by a verse A, B, C, and D.
So, Brother Hamza, there is talking about getting research from very technical people.
Yes.
And some of these scholars have two dimensions. Some of them have really studied theology and at the same time have the science part of it, meaning when this person combines this kind of experience, what is going to give out is really somebody with authority.
Exactly.
So what we see in society, especially in Uganda, we see many of our scholars, some of whom comment on certain things when they really know little about certain subjects. What kind of message, before we advance, what kind of message can you give regarding our scholars who at times comment on certain things, some of whom even say some of those things are not there. They are either oblivion or I don't know. But maybe just chipping a word there, some kind of a message, kind of advice for our local scholars before they comment on certain things, what really needs to be done, because some of us, we are just mukhalidin, we just follow whatever our sheikhs say. We don't have the capacity even to go to the YouTube and make more research.
Anyway, I think we just need to realize that our domain of Islam covers possibly the universe, if we can just use one word. Meaning every aspect of human life has been covered and commented about by the Islamic system. But within the Islamic system, you have two things to note. One, you have the core of the faith, which is the Quran and the Sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. That is the core. That core does not change, and it covers the basic principles that give us an understanding of our religion. But once we are done with that core, we go to the area of practice. I think they usually refer to it as mu'amalat, where we work with the deen. Now that
the horizontal kind of
domain there is very wide, and unfortunately here in Uganda we tend to narrow it a bit. For example, just in business, the good thing we now have an open door for Islamic finance. Just in a business dealings alone, if you are to go into that area and begin to dig up the heavy detail of how exactly should a Muslim do business, you'll find a whole universe there, and you'll not find any single individual that can be aware of all those things that are in that area,
can claim authority.
So usually what happens, the formidable scholars of Islam also don't get themselves bogged down by those details of mu'amalat. So what they do, should a question arise, and that question is about something related with the business, they ask the professionals of business. Actually, one example was given to us. I think it was one of the muftis in Saudi Arabia. He was asked whether a Muslim is permitted to read the Playboy magazines. But for him, of course, he has never heard of these Playboy magazines.
The nude magazine.
So what he asks, he says, what is a Playboy?
Bring it to me and
magazine?
I see.
So you need to provide it. So they show him. Of course, he didn't look a lot at it. Simply saw it once and makes the verdict that this is outside what is permitted. Meaning, before a ruling is made, you have to have a detailed understanding of that domain before we pass. But unfortunately, in our case here, I think it is driven partially by our culture, where we have limited the reading incentive. Generally here in Uganda, reading is not something we do, to the level that even up to PhD. Because PhD, the theoretical understanding would be that this person has now been exposed to the maximum of capacity to research and to discover, so he's now free to go and read whatever he wants. But you'll find even up to that level, our general environment of very little reading culture tends to put us down to the level that even that person that has attained a very high qualification still finds it not something interesting to read. So that brings in the weakness that when we are asked about certain aspects for which we have little exposure, we tend not to think of, first of all, either doing reading by ourselves or asking another person that is more exposed, because that would give you a wider view of what exactly are you commenting about, and it becomes easier for you to pass a concrete ruling that is founded on understanding of both the core of the deen and also the details of the aspect, because things can come out as either halal or haram, depending on the very detailed understanding of what exactly we are talking about.
Exactly.
So our video channels like YouTube, etc., give us access to some of these very exposed scholars, and in some cases some of them have also interacted with some other people with exposure to business, exposure to science and technology. So when they talk from a very wide expanse of knowledge, and we are able to benefit even if they are not within our proximity. So that is one important thing. The other part of the internet, apart from just YouTube, because YouTube is just one website, it has very many benefits. There are also individual websites that are authored by Muslim scholars, and they are of benefit. One of them is Islam QA. Islam QA is a fatwa, an international fatwa point. So that Islam QA, it is islamqa.info. That is a fatwa point, meaning from anywhere in the world, you have exposure to a committee of very well-grounded sheikhs. They receive your question, they debate about the question, and put out a moderate position that is commensurate with wherever you may be. Of course, we need to note that fatwa sometimes are personalized. If I come and ask you a question, and you give me an answer, that answer may not be what is applicable to another person.
Exactly.
Because we are told of a scenario where Umar ibn al-Khattab was in a mosque giving some sermon, not necessarily khutbah. So one man came and asked him, is it possible for one to do tawbah after murdering a person? So he said no. So the man walks away and goes. Then another one comes and asks exactly the same question, with the audience still the same because they were in a learning session. So he asks, is it possible for one to do tawbah after killing a person? This time he answers yes. So that man also goes away. So the people that were seated, remember, they have seen both people asking, and they have seen two opposite answers.
Of course, that you can merge it with the incidences, many you know, that are said from the Prophet when an old man comes and asks the Prophet whether he can pick his wife, then he says yes. Then the youth says no.
The man says no. So when he was asked why he had given two different answers to people within the same area, he gave the explanation. So he said, the first man who asked had a lot of anger in his eyes, meaning he seemed to be planning to kill a person.
Yeah.
But before he kills, he wanted to
get just a leeway.
Yeah, to ascertain that once he's done with this killing, he can be able to do tawbah. So in that case, in order to prevent this person from carrying out this negativity, he was given an answer no.
That is just appropriate.
As a preventive action for that particular scenario. Then the second one, he said he seemed to be sad, meaning he had already committed the offense and was seeking a way of atoning. So in that case, of course, he was given that answer of yes. The general principle is that in Allah Ghafur Rahim, so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will always forgive. And in Ramadan we always say Allahumma innaka afuwun tuhibbul afwa fa'fu anna, meaning Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will forgive any sin. But you can see that at fatwa point, we are able to vary the answers depending on the scenario at hand. So this islamqa.info is one website that has a very large number of questions that have already been asked by others, and you can be able to ask these questions. So meaning, even if you don't have very experienced scholars within your locality, you can still be able to get good answers coming out of these other scholars that are internationally exposed.
Just maybe we need to have some kind of disclaimer on seeking online sources.
Yes.
The issue of putting things in context.
Yes, yes.
Usually we have had a number of online sources antagonizing our communities. That somebody just picks an online kind of fatwa. It is not in the context of, say, for example, Uganda, where we are,
yes,
and it brings a lot of anarchy in the community. Well, where the answer that was given or the response that was given may be just suited a context that is far away from our kind of culture, because when we look at some of the sources of Sharia, culture is part of them. Now, by not putting that in context, it brings anarchy. So I think you need to comment something on to do with usually depending on fatwas that are online, and you don't maybe seek a second opinion from somebody who is that.
Okay, what we already indicated was that fatwa is not the same as Quran, because once a verse says wala taqrabu zina, the verse has pronounced itself. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made his pronouncement, and in that case there is no alternative.
Actually, the scholars of usul fiqh make a clear difference that hukum is not essentially the fatwa. So fatwa can be different from the hukum depending on the situation.
On the capacity of the person giving the fatwa, and of course the fatwa requires some minimum qualification for those that give them out. So what we are saying is, for personal fatwa, for example, a person has committed a sin of a certain kind that is seeking a particular answer for their situations, those kinds of fatwa, it's not good to simply copy them from the individual that has been given an answer, because like we have said in the earlier case, one mufti is giving two opposite answers depending on the situation of the individual. So here it is wiser for the internet-based fatwa to look at fatwa about mainly mainstream issues, like is it permitted to combine swala, things of mainstream fiqh. They are the ones where you can easily get an answer that is applicable both here and in another part of the world. You know the rule of some fatwa that were passed in the past, where they made it haram for a woman to kneel for her husband. You've heard of those kinds of fatwa. Now, the ones that ask, they don't really provide enough information to the people that make these conclusions. So the other person making the conclusion bases it on the fact that this act of kneeling is nearly in the direction of worship. So as a way of preventing a gradual shift towards the shirk, we can cancel it out. But in the context of Uganda and indeed other areas, this is just a gesture of respect. Just like the Japanese have their way of bowing the head, it encompasses everywhere. And in Uganda, it's not only the women who kneel for the men. Within our culture, as the Ganda, you have to kneel for your mother or for your father, in case
essentially the parents.
Okay. So in that case, you can see that the kneeling is not really gender biased. It is based on who are you addressing and what level of respect are you supposed to be having. So Islamic QA is also there. There are also sites that contain books, electronic books. Because remember, we have said, yes, there is fatwa, you can go and ask a question, but there are things that require extensive reading, meaning you need a book. You need a book of hadith, you need a book. So these ones are also very many. One of them is Islam House. Islam House, just the word Islam and the word house. Islamhouse.com. Let me see. Now, Islamhouse.com has a very large number of books. Islamhouse.com. So for them, they combine both books. They also have audios, meaning they have lectures that are done in an audio format. Then they also have the books, of course, are there. They also have parts which are Quran. So this is a very good website where you'll find nearly any book you want in a digital format. And they also have these books in multiple languages. Of course, the majority of language options are largely European. You'll find there Bosnian, English, Urdu. So the local ones that we have here are not necessarily available in translation, but at least for us we are exposed to English, so whenever there's an option of English we are able to go through. So this site here will give you a very large collection of books of all kinds, written on fiqh, written on so many subjects. You find it all there. So this is all technology that we find available, and it makes it very simple for one to access a book. Remember that in the olden days a man would walk or would travel for hundreds of kilometers, and he's only going to confirm one hadith. Wallahi, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless those men, because there were people that were really focused on the issue of seeking for knowledge. Imagine a person traveling over 1,000 or 2,000 kilometers, but all he wants is to confirm whether this hadith that he has heard is actually a true hadith.
Moreover, he has heard it already, but wants to confirm.
If you just hear about the way the hadiths were compiled, especially the Sahih Bukhari, that book, if you just hear the way those hadiths were compiled, it is reported that Bukhari would first of all confirm that the hadith is itself valid, one, by studying the entire sanad. Meaning, if the hadith came from me, I heard it from Menya and from another person, he would investigate the lives of each of those individuals one by one. And by investigation, he's not only focusing on the individual, he's also looking at their family. Can you believe it is reported that some of the hadiths he threw out were based on this person had a brother that was committing sins? You imagine. It's not the person that is committing sin, but a relative of his is committing sin. Bukhari cancels that one, says no, this one we shall not take. Meaning, whenever you see any hadith in that book, what Sahih Bukhari, just know that that one is a solid,
has been authenticated. There is an incident as we wind up where Bukhari went to authenticate a hadith, and he found, it was this person among the Bedouins was trying to lure a kind of sheep or a goat to come and, take some kind of food or whatever. But it was a catch. Seeing that, he said, no. So somebody who does this
is a liar.
So it was really a hard.
So meaning, he is not even willing to accommodate lying to an animal. Meaning, you want to capture some chicken, so you drop something that they can eat, they come closer, you capture. He regards that as part of lying, which is, we can't take a hadith from that kind of person. So meaning, the efforts that were needed by the earlier generations to access knowledge were really immense. But now in our current generation, like we have said, you have a whole library, billions of articles, billions of books available to you on a single website. And nowadays with these smartphones, because they have capability of internet, you don't need a computer like what I'm having here. All you need is this. Simply go to islamhouse.com. You'll find there thousands of very interesting books about subjects that are of every kind.
It has been a kind of wonderful show, looking at merely an item that is just internet and what it has really contributed to Islam, developing to another level. We shall have to maybe to pick up from there maybe for next kind of episode. I would ask you to have your parting shots.
All right. Now, our listeners, we have been looking at the internet as a technology that was originally invented for other purposes, but we have benefited out of it as Muslims. We have said Islam is the fastest growing religion in Europe and North America, but you don't find Muslims going there to spread the deen. So the majority of people that are converting in those societies, they are converting because of information they have found on YouTube, they have found on the internet, on websites of every kind. So meaning, we would not really have been able to provide that kind of exposure to these people, but now it is there. Like we have said, even Uganda here nowadays, we have a lot of these channels that have come up. Of course, some of them come up for purposes of growing themselves into some kind of income. There's no harm in that, but there is a lot of content nowadays. You cannot say I didn't know of ABC because I did not have access to a scholar or etc. You have a lot of access, all because of this technology that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given to us. So the technology can also be used for negative things. If you go on YouTube, you'll also find there pornographic videos, very many of them. But what we are saying is that the technology comes because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has intended the good out of it. So let's utilize the good that we find in this technology, and if we can even author content, for those that have capacity to author good, genuine content, you can record videos of prominent scholars and put online for others to access. Wallahi, that is the best, because there are so many darasat that occur, but you cannot attend all of them. But once you have all of them recorded and uploaded, we all have capacity to benefit out of them. So we pray for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give us the benefit intended out of these programs, and to make us some of the positive participants in the spread of Islam.
Barakallahu fikum, Brother Sakalima, for this show. I think we shall be picking from there. Just like he said, these technologies are double-edged. So depending on how we use it is how either it will be beneficial to Islam or it will be detrimental. So let's be among those that use the technology positively and benefit our religion of Islam. Subhanakallahumma bihamdik, ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta, astaghfiruka wa atubu ilaik. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Until then, bye-bye.
Eno ye Salam TV. Adhan ngekutuswako.
Hotel Africana. Come as a guest and leave as a friend.
Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. Ashhadu an la